of this season, Millard Nepler asked about photographing his fiber pieces for sale. I think he has an Etsy site. I'm not sure about that. But he wanted to know if the guild would consider a class. And the guild board has decided that class in photography was done too recent, and we will not be offering that type of class. Oh, 4 or 5 years ago. So
Before all of us.
yes, but it's too recent anyhow. So when Susan saw, I don't remember whether Susan was on that particular meeting or saw it later in the videos, she contacted me and said, by the way, I took a class like that.
Mhm.
So if you want to describe the class again, so we have it on the
Sure.
recording.
Sure. Yes, this was sponsored by the Southwest Women's Fiber Arts Collective, which is based in Silver City. And it was presented by an artist from Las Cruces. I don't believe she currently gives the same class, but it was basically how to photograph more effectively your fiber projects using a smartphone. And I have some slides there if Marianne wants to call them up, and then it'll be easier to talk from them. I believe there were maybe 6 of us in the group. Some with Android phones like mine is, and some with iPhones or whatever they call that operating system. And in some ways, it seemed like the iPhone was easier, mostly because it has a verbally activated shutter, and the Android system does not have that.
It doesn't.
So if you have an iPhone, it might be easier. And I don't know if you've tried that particular option. But it's kind of interesting. I mean, you can use any word that you want to activate the shutter. Of course, all the phones on their photograph mode do have a time lag on the shutter. So it's possible to just go ahead and, put the time lag or the 2 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it takes. And then you're not touching the phone, because that was the big issue I think a lot of people have, and I do also when I'm just taking casual pictures, is that I tend to jiggle the phone inadvertently. Now, maybe that's old age, but, or the nature of the
It's
beast.
the same thing with the camera too.
True. So at any rate, that was one thing that was quite intriguing to me. I never would have thought of a verbal shutter for a phone. So we have that, and now I think he's uploading.
Yes.
Okay. So now I'm going to pause, and you're going to say something, Marianne?
No, we are back to you. That was an unintentional interruption, and I
That's all right.
apologize.
So here are the primary takeaways I had. And this was, I think, a 2 or 3 hour session. It wasn't long. Small tripod with a holder for the phone. And you can see there is one of the laptops here, or the tablets here, has a holder. And these are available on Amazon, like almost everything else in the world. But the specific one I have, and I apologize for not bringing it, just expands wide enough for your phone. And then the remote shutter activation, which I already talked about. And then a shadow box. It's in a picture on the next slide, but right now, let's just talk about it a bit. Basically, what that did is to block out the ambient light. And the background, as y'all have already realized with your own casual photos, is the background makes a difference. I mean, how many times have you taken a picture of your friend or your family that you haven't seen in a long time and have a telephone pole coming out the top of their head? Because what you're focusing on is the subject of the photo, not the background. And so that was a key takeaway for me, was you really have to look at the background of what you're taking. The other thing that was interesting was to shade the light from windows. The ambient light in the room makes a big difference. And our house has a lot of south-facing windows that are big in New Mexico at altitude. So, and just like here, you get a lot of sunshine. So at any rate, shade that. And then the biggest takeaway was using the Snapseed app. And if you don't have that on your phone, even for your own casual photographs, I think you will find that it's really, really helpful. If nothing else, then to crop your photos. It has, I haven't even counted how many, 20 at least different options for colors. And I think Mary Ann has some
I have some
examples to show
photos,
us.
yeah, later.
So that was a real big takeaway. Okay, next slide. There is the shadow box that she brought, the instructor, and it's basically just a rigid, opaque plastic. And I think there was a bottom to it, but you wouldn't have to if you had a plain white table. And then there's a picture of my little tripod with a holder. And looks like, I didn't notice this before, but that fabric that the tripod's sitting on, that's a piece from Ukraine that one of my friends brought to me several years ago when she visited there. Made, in their traditional way, woven. Yeah, how appropriate right now. And then the other thing we used was a black velvet background. And you can see how
I'm trying to turn it off.
you can see how some of the, really enhances the picture of some of the fabrics. Now, that's a good picture that would need to be cropped in Snapseed, which is easy to do. So, okay, next page, please. Now, here's an example of how the background makes a big difference. This is a set of placemats in color and weave. I think it's just plain weave, I don't know, that I did quite some time ago. And look how different they look depending upon what the background is used. Now, the one on the lower right was fabric that the instructor brought, and so it wasn't ironed or anything. But it really makes a difference, especially if you're using this photograph on a website in order to, sell your product or, elicit questions from people about it. So I think that's all the pictures that I have,
Yes.
and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Unfortunately, this woman, like I said, the website that she gave us at the class, admittedly, 3 or 4 years ago, is no longer active for her. Yes, ma'am.
You can buy, if you don't want to put together a plastic light box, you can buy a very inexpensive one on Amazon that folds up into a little carrying case that's about this. That's how mine is. It comes into a square and it folds up and it has a handle on the top and it's about this thick when you fold it up.
Is it that same kind of opaque?
No, it's
plastic?
made with an opaque fabric with a wire frame, and then each side folds in and the top folds down and then the bottom folds up and snaps over the top, and then you have,
Okay,
and it stores much more easily than that. I mean, if you have storage, that's fine. But for what you would pay for that plastic, you could buy, and the one that I bought came with lights and with the little tripod too.
nice. Well, the black velvet
Pardon?
was,
And where do you get it?
Amazon.
Amazon.
Would you send me a link so that I can send that out to the Quarry Cross group?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
the black velvet was just draped over the back of a chair. And so we took a chair, not unlike these, and set it upside down on the tabletop and draped the velvet over it. And that worked really well.
Ingenious, yeah.
Yeah,
Is black always the recommended background? I mean,
Well, mine came with black, navy blue, white, and red velvet backgrounds and it has a Velcro strip. So once you get the box set up, you can stick your background in and then it curves so that there's no bend.
and that's the way this one was also.
Here it is.
So at any rate, Mary Ann's looking at Snapseed.
So this is one of the options that you get when you start up Snapseed. Is you can see, you can tilt it down there on the bottom left, you can rotate it, you can change the scale. You can, basically do all sorts of fun stuff with it. Here, it looks like I probably zoomed in or maybe even cropped it to pull what I had. I must confess, it's been a while. Susan and I have been talking about this for 2 or 3 months, and so it's been a while since I actually took these screen prints of my Snapseed app. Here I turned it into black and white.
May I interject here?
Yes, please.
I'll show you a piece later on, that's just a bunch of odds and ends from my stash that I put together. And I wanted to understand the value differences.
Yes.
That's really good for it. So if you have some yarn or a project that requires different values in warp and weft or to different warps, this is a good way to look at it with the
Yes.
black and white option.
So, and you can tell down there on the bottom, you still, even once you turn it into black and white, you've got options, you know, to say, I want to try brighting, making it brighter, I want to make it darker. Like she said, there's all sorts of options. Right, that one right there, it looks like is contrast. If you check, like on the neutral, the picture that I'm showing now, you can see on the very bottom left there, that little neutral has got a blue band around it. That picture then is in neutral. And then if I go to the next picture, I told it that I wanted to see the contrast. And so you get a little more definition there. And then that must be the one, number 5, whatever that one was. What was that one? Dark and
Well,
sky.
that's
Well,
the
this is
color.
probably a completely different option than the black and white. So, and that looks like all the pictures that I took for the Snapseed. I only took 4 or 5 options.
Before you cut them up.
Before I cut, yes, I did this after, this was obviously, we can time it by whether, you know, after the meeting. Is on Android, Snapseed, Karen has, or somebody I think today has verified is on the Apple Store. So if you want it, you should be able to get it. Anything else on taking photographs using your phone or using Snapseed or similar apps to edit?
Well, I think on a lot of, my phone is a Samsung 9, which is
Yeah.
quite a few versions
Yeah,
ago.
that is, yeah.
But they have a lot of editing just on the phone as well.
They do.
So like I said, some of the real key things were the tripod, the light box or the black velvet. We even had a piece of fur. I didn't send y'all the picture, though I can send it to Mary Ann when I get home today. This woman brought a piece of fur. I don't know if it was coyote or wolf or skunk or something.
Skunk.
And I used to have a skunk hat. It didn't even smell. But that made a really interesting background too. So
I save pieces
something
of,
better than your dining room table, which is what I usually use.
I save pieces of fabric that I think will make interesting backgrounds too, like a piece of jute or, you know, something like that. There is another free editing program that's a lot more sophisticated. It's not for your phone, it's for your computer, and it's called GIMP, G-I-M-P. And it basically is the free version of Adobe Photoshop.
Really?
Yes, and it does all kinds of things. I mean, it does layers. You can drop the background out. I mean, if you really want to get into it, it's just called GIMP. And there are GIMP tutorials on YouTube. So if you're not sure how to get started, if you've never used Adobe Photoshop, you can go on to GIMP. And it actually, if you look at my photos, these were edited with GIMP. They're shot in my Lightbox with my camera, but then edited on GIMP.
Okay, so
So
we'll see
you
that
could-
shortly.
You could take a photo on your phone,
Upload it to your
upload it to your
computer
computer and then use
and edit
this
it with GIMP. Yeah.
and then have it there to email to
Mhm.
for your show and
Show and
tell.
share. Mhm.
Okay.